How we found the service so far? I found it amazing. Can everyone hear me? I have to say things 6 times before my dad can hear me, so I have to pace myself so you can all understand me. Anyway, I would like to carry on the service by preaching something I have titled, The Way of Life for Us as Christians. Now, our race in life can be stressful, with ups and downs, and that can what leads people astray. But I'd like us to open to 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 19 to 23, and these will be our base scriptures today. So 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 19 to 23. Nevertheless, this solid foundation of God stands, having this seal. The Lord knows who are his, and let everyone who names the name of Christ depart from iniquity. But in a great house there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel of honor, sanctified and useful for the master, prepared for every good work. Flee also youthful lusts, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace, with those who call on the Lord with a pure heart. But avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. Now, in these verses, Paul wants Timothy to be an excellent faithful bondservant, and he should be kind to all. But the true question is, are we excellent faithful bondservants? Do we know if we are the Lord's? Like it says in verse 19, the Lord knows those who are his. It also says in Numbers 16:5, the Lord will show who is his and who is holy, and will cause them to come near to him. This means that we need to be close to God, here on earth, following his laws and his statutes, so that on earth and in heaven we will be his, but it can be only the holy ones that will come near to him. Now let me ask you, do you ever just sit down and think to yourself, I need to draw near to God? In Hebrews 10:22, it says, let us draw near with a true heart, in full assurance of faith, having our hearts sprinkled from an evil conscience, and our bodies washed with pure water. As it says in the verse, we need to draw near to God how? In full assurance of faith, which means we need to positively declare that we want to draw near to God with a full heart. We need to trust in the promises of God. We are called to approach God with confidence, knowing that he is faithful to his word and will receive us with open arms. This is the way we should be living our life. What is the Bible trying to say here? Why do we need to draw near to God? First things first, because the Lord knows those who are his. Because drawing near to God should be our way of life as Christians. Full assurance of faith should also be our way of life. That means we need to think positive, we must act positive, and we must behave positive. This, therefore, means we should trust in God in every circumstance and every situation. If we have an exam that we prepared for, and we pray to God for us to do well, we should have complete faith and not doubt his power one bit. I'm speaking to my young influencers now. There shouldn't be any negative reports about us in school, at home, at church, or anywhere people find us. This should be our way of life, and we should declare this every day. The Bible also says in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 12, in whom we have boldness and access with confidence through faith in him. Just because we have faith in God, we have boldness and confidence to come in his presence. When we pray, when we sing, or when we are just on our own among our friends and mates. I know most of you hear people saying you should tell your friends about Christ and you should tell them to be born again. But have any of you actually ever done this? I'm mostly talking to my fellow kids here. Does anyone want to share if they've ever done this? Oh, okay. Now, wouldn't it be good if through the faith of God, we were able to preach to our friends and tell them about the love of God? We love to hang out with our friends and we love to have fun with them. But would it hurt to take 5 minutes of your break time or lunchtime to tell them about the loving kindness of God? Even if they say no, it would have been good that you tried. Again, this should be our way of life. And also, our way of life should tell people that we are God's children. It should show that we are God's children. It should show that God has handpicked us to do the work of Christ for him. As you grow up, you probably watch movies about heroes and people who save the day, and you aspire to be like them. The reason you do is because they were able to save the day in the first place. But do you think they would be able to save the day if they weren't courageous or valiant and were scared of the challenges they faced? Life can be hard sometimes, and will throw things at us to knock us down. So we have to have the faith in God to give us courage and strength to fight back the challenges. We have to use this faith to overcome things in our daily lives, like writing an exam and not being stressed about it. We need it when we need to admit that some people may be better at us in one aspect, but that's okay, because God made us fearfully and wonderfully. We are perfect the way we are. We need this faith to be able to be brave enough to stand in our assembly hall and to talk to other students about a topic, to be bold enough to confess that we have done something wrong, or to be able to chip in that slight thing about God when maybe your friends ask you what you do on Sundays, that you're always busy, and you're able to tell them you go to church, and that you're not just busy doing something. So what am I trying to say here? Faith should be our way of life as Christians. If you tell me to turn to verse 20 and then verse 21 of 2 Timothy chapter 2. I'll read it here. But in a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and silver, but also wood and clay, some for honor and some for dishonor. Therefore, if anyone cleanses himself from the latter, he will be a vessel of honor. Everyone knows how valuable gold and silver are. You wouldn't use them to carry your bins. You care for them because they are precious metals. In our worldly homes, this will be a vessel of honor. So we have to be vessels of honor in God's house and be like the gold and the silver. We have to cleanse ourselves from things that are dishonorable, which is like the wood and the clay, the things that seem ordinary in our lives. We don't give much care and thought into them. We don't want our life to be like that in God's eyes. So being honorable should be our way of life as Christians. Now, if you read on our base scriptures, if we turn to verse 22, I'll read here. Flee also useful lust, but pursue righteousness, faith, love, peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. In this verse, it tells us to completely flee from youthful lust. But do you know what this really means? It doesn't mean not having a girlfriend or boyfriend when you're not ready for one, or desiring for the things that God made for adults to enjoy, or watching the wrong things on the internet. It could be things that seem kind of small. For example, it could be wanting to be the most popular kid in your school, or wanting to fit in with the latest and be on the latest trends. It could be wanting to have the most expensive clothes, or just wanting to have the best material goods. These are all things that the devil uses to tempt us in our daily lives, but we have to choose to overcome them. The Bible tells us to flee or to completely flee from lust, but also we should pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace. We can also pursue the fruits of the Spirit that are mentioned there, like joy, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, and gentleness and self-control. And if we do all this, we can make our ways pure. And ensuring our ways are pure should be our way of life as Christians. Can you please open to Psalm chapter 119, verse 9 to 11? Can you please put it in the English Standard Version or ESV, if you have that? I would like you to read the psalm with me. Also, we recently watched a movie together called The Forge, where the main character, Isaiah, reads this verse as well. Okay, you don't have it. I'll read it. So, how can a young man keep his ways pure? By guarding it according to your word. With my whole heart I seek you. Let me not wander from your commandments. I have stored up your word in my heart, that I may not sin against you. Another way we can keep our ways pure is guarding our ways according to the word. And the word says we should trust in the Lord with all our heart and not conform to the pattern of this world. In verse 23 it says, but avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. We want our ways to be pure, right? But it can't be pure if we do things that cause arguments. As we just read, we should avoid foolish and ignorant disputes as they lead to strife. We shouldn't say things that hurt people, but just for the sake of saying it. Like Pastor always says, there's some people who require extra grace, but we shouldn't get angry at the way they behave. We need to help them and stay calm and in a righteous mind so we don't do something we regret. We have probably heard that saying that if people don't argue and fight, they don't truly love each other. This may be true to the world, but it doesn't say anything about like that in the Bible. It doesn't mean purposely annoying the person that you seem to love. It means that there may be some habits that we have that might annoy the other person, or vice versa. Do you not think Jesus would have loved to silence the Jews when they were saying all those bad things about him in front of Pilate? Yes, he would have. He's human after all. But Jesus showed us the way to live our lives by staying quiet. Let's think about it for a minute. By staying quiet, you avoid foolish and ignorant disputes. By staying quiet, you haven't generated strife. So why don't you just stay quiet? Staying quiet and not saying unnecessary things should be our way of life. We want to live a life that is being kind to all. So what have I been trying to say? Our way of life has to reflect that we are faithful bondservants in God's eyes. We should live a life that urges to draw near to God. We should be a part of ones that the Lord knows who are his. Our way of life should be full of faith. It should be full of honor. It should be ensuring that our ways are pure. And lastly, our way of life shouldn't generate strife. Thank you for listening.